Today's guest is Dr. Johannes Metzler, who I think of as the genius. Other people might describe him as the top coach for businesses in Europe. But when I think of you in the school, Johannes, I just you're like a finely tuned animal. I was trying to think of which one I was going for. And it's almost like a cheetah. Your ability to accelerate and absorb information and utilize it staggers me. It's like, and I'm not easily staggered, but I just love watching you and watching you grow. It was such a joy. So I'm dead chuffed you're here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and I've been looking forward to seeing you again,
Yay.
who I also hold in very high regard and esteem. And I just count myself lucky that we've gotten to know each other much better during the school
Yeah.
as seat buddies,
Yeah.
and then also
Yeah, that's
during the
true.
immersion.
Sleep buddies, we were. Yeah. I'd forgotten that. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. For anybody watching who doesn't know what that is, like we had these agreements around integrity in the school, which was really fun actually. And we had seat buddies. So your idea was you made sure that somebody was in their seat at the right time. So I always had to make sure you were in your seat at the right time. That's the way I create it anyway.
Yeah, and same for me. And the good thing was we never really had to make sure we were in our seats because we always
Exactly.
were in our seats. So
Yeah. We are king timekeepers, like always there, always there. Righty, let's hit my questions. First one was biggest shift for you personally during the school.
I want to thank you for those questions, first of all, Dave. And I really want to acknowledge you for putting this on, because what it allowed me to do was go back to what was the school all about? Like, what did I get from it? All these, shifts, big and small, tangible and intangible. What was it that happened? And what stands out for me? Because that's your question, really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy, but what really, I guess, sprang to my mind, first of all, was that there was a continuous process, journey, transformation of really seeing my value, of really deepening the understanding of the value that I, through my being, my skills, my experience, my uniqueness, can bring to the world, specifically to the world of business. And that in the container of the school, through Kush, there was a creation of Europe's best leadership coach.
Mm.
And I really started seeing that. It was like an idea before, and then it started becoming more and more ingrained and embodied in my being, to the point that I could start creating from that place and speaking that into the world, and then also actually giving people a chance to pay for that.
Oh, there you go. That's brilliant. I have no further questions. No, I'm kidding. What is it? That's just the way you threw away that line. That's what I love about you. It's like these throwaway lines that come out that are just amazing, and then give people the chance to pay for that. It is. That's like being Beyonce or something, isn't it? You develop this huge talent, this amazing repertoire, and then you put on gigs, and people can pay for them. They don't have to.
Yeah.
But it's there. If you want that and you enjoy that sound and you want what that artist has to offer, there it is, and this is the ticket price. And so what is that? What does it feel like being that you, that version of you? What does that feel like day to day now? I mean, it just sounds like monstrously exciting to me.
Yeah, it feels incredible. It just feels so incredible. It feels unleashed in a way. It feels like very
Wow.
liberated.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel that in you.
Which is the whole power of that piece, that it's not a destination to arrive to, but it's a come from, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like the source from which I'm creating, from which I'm speaking into the world. It's like the filter through which I see myself bringing value to business clients in Europe. And it has given me an immense power to actually create that value. It's kind of funny, right? How that sort of like self-reinforces. Of the
Totally.
speaking
Yeah.
of which, you know,
Totally.
creates the value that I think I only created to a fraction.
Yeah.
Um, because I gave sort of like the receiver or the listeners of that speaking into the world the chance to accept it and to use it, to
I love
utilize
that.
it.
I love that. That's really funny. I was listening to a Brian Johnson podcast, wandering around doing my 10 million steps the other day, and I thought the guy interviewing him, I can't remember exactly who it was now, but I thought that's pretty cool actually. I like that, and I thought, well, I can do that. I can come from that place
Yeah.
of interviewing in that way. And so it is amazing when you just start to see these possibilities of how excited you can get about being you. And that's what one of the many things. And then we had the immersion together, of course, the men's immersion, powerful men's immersion, which was crazy good, where I got to know you more and more deeply. And I just saw the fun and the enjoyment and the mischievousness within you that just started to come out, and I just think it's beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah, and I was when you just started off this interview, I was like deeply touched by how you started this interview. It was almost like unexpectedly good and touching.
Mm.
So I can see that you being that and you coming from the place of being that interviewer right now.
Yeah,
Like I could immediately feel that. And that immediately makes me show up differently to this interview, which is
yeah,
sort of like the dynamic that I was describing from my place.
yeah. And it's oh, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate the acknowledgement, and it's cool because like literally 10 seconds before, I have no idea what's going to come out. I had one sentence written down on my book over there, and I've got your book in front of me, which is also behind you, because I think that's worth a mention in the conversation somewhere. But something happens in the decision to be there, that when it's time to go, that Dave just shows up,
Yeah.
and it's where I can speak from because it's who I know you to be, and it's just kind of fun. Question 2. Biggest shift in your business, especially if you didn't anticipate it.
I think the biggest shift in my business is really tied to the last thing that I said to your first question about giving people a chance to pay for Europe's best leadership coach. So,
I love the way you smile when you say that, by the way.
I mean, I think I was really before the school coming from a very incremental approach to my business. And there's nothing wrong with that because there is the whole idea of like filling my practice at a price that resonates with the market. And I was part of that game and it was a lot of fun and it was hugely valuable.
Mm.
And I noticed at some point that from being Europe's best leadership coach, I could propose entirely different things to my clients, to the groups and teams that I started making proposals to, that were in the tens of thousands of euros. And I didn't have those like upper proposals to be accepted. And a couple of them were accepted sort of like in the medium range of my, proposals
Mm.
of different options. And that has given my business a boost that was sort of like conceptually available before, but not really. It felt like it felt very far away, and
Yeah,
then all of a sudden it was happening.
I love that. I love that. That's so exciting, isn't it? It felt miles away, and then suddenly, like, I remember I think it was 200 million euro moment. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do. That was,
So cool.
I mean, for those who were not in the room, there I had a like a big shift, another big shift at the third weekend of the AJC where I went up in front of the room, speaking from exactly that change, that shifted being of Europe's best leadership coach, and I just love repeating it over and over
Yeah,
again.
no, I'm really digging you saying it. It's brilliant. I love it. I love it.
And so I started seeing, the possibility of me as a like solo coach
Mhm.
creating millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of euros of value to companies that I'm coaching and working with. And I think the beauty of the school as a whole is this like seeing possibility in each other and then speaking possibility in each other into each other and then creating each other, which of course Kush does brilliantly. Because in that moment, then he created me as a 200 million euro coach with, a business employing the whole room to coach Europe's businesses, which is not necessarily my vision for my business.
Yeah,
However, that had not occurred to me as like even as a possibility.
yeah,
And just that was a possibility, even if I don't want to go for it, that blew my mind because that was like 100 times the possibility that I had seen before. And
yeah,
all of a sudden it was like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, true. That is
I
actually.
remember because you're a tall guy anyway, and I watched you grow about 2 inches when he said it. It was like literally you expanded. Your whole being expanded, which included the physiological representation of the body. You grew at that moment and
Yeah.
saw that, as you said, that might not be what you want to do, but it's a possibility. And it's those possibilities that extend us. Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it. Final question. Yeah, so for anybody who's thinking of doing the school, and when people hear this, I've said this on a couple of interviews, right? These aren't promo plugs for the school. They might sound like it, but they're not. They're an opportunity to distill gold that has massive value for me, and hopefully
Mm.
has value for other people as well. So whatever it is you're thinking of doing, whether it's any program that someone's thinking of doing, any coaching group, any one-to-one, whatever, listen through that context. What's your top tip for people of how to get the most, how to create the most out of these experiences?
Mm. I love how you created the context for that because I'm now realizing that what I want to share in answer to that question is exactly something that has a much bigger possibility for me for all kinds of like programs, trainings, webinars that I'm going on. And I really want to acknowledge Karen Davis for that, because there was a moment in an interview where she dropped a couple of these truth bombs that really informed my thinking around this. And I think there is a distinction between, especially for the live weekends, right? Showing up for the weekend and seeing what happens, which is also a beautiful unfolding, and coming with a very specific intention to the weekend. And then listening and looking at what unfolds through that lens, if that's the one that's making a big shift for me. And that's the difference between, I guess, like hoping that it'll be valuable, and knowing it will be valuable. And so if I were to give like one big tip, it was bringing an attention to the school as a whole and to the live weekend specifically. So, for example, at the third weekend, my intention was, what can I see about being Europe's best leadership coach? That was the lens through which I looked at the whole
Mm,
weekend.
mm,
And then what would Europe's best leadership coach do based on what I'm learning here?
yeah.
And I brought every weekend I brought a list of all my clients in my notebook, and so that I could sort of like check and have ideas and immediately like text them things or videos or so that was basically through that intention I could immediately make it very practical with my clients and even prospects that I was talking to at the time. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but I think except for one day of one weekend, I always sat in the front row.
Yeah.
Because I knew I didn't want to be distracted and looking at what other people were doing. I really wanted to be there, like to fully be in the room so
Wow.
that I could soak up the most.
Genius. That's who you are for me. Genius. Johannes, thank you so much. We really could talk all day. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Really appreciate you for who you're being and what you're creating in the world, what you're up to, and the fun and joy and giggles that you bring to everything that you do is just highly, highly enjoyable. And I love being around that energy.
Thank you.